What's going on, everybody? This is Sean of Raw Select Music, and today I want to talk about this record right here. This is Si Para Usted Volume 2, The Funky Beats of Revolutionary Cuba, and I just want to point this thing out on the back of it. It says, Communist Funk. Maybe the intonation was a little bit off on that, but whatever. I'm going to keep it anyways. I've had this record for probably about 7 or 8 years now, and when I first bought it, I didn't really listen to it that much. For some reason, I picked it up again recently and discovered that I actually really like this record. So I thought, since I've been listening to it a lot recently, now seems like the perfect time to talk about it and why I think it's a compilation worth checking out. So with that out of the way, let's get into this thing. So full disclosure, I know this is Volume 2. I sort of missed the boat on Volume 1. I don't know if it's true for the first one, but I know for this compilation that it is a very limited press. I have number 242 out of 1,000 copies. So I can't really comment on whether the first volume is better than this one. So I'm not going to make any comparisons to that record or compilation. I'm just going to be talking about what's on this record. So one of the things that led me to picking this record up in the first place was this guy right here. And that is Panama, Latin, Calypso, and Funk on the Isthmus? Somebody help me with that pronunciation. Anyways, 1965 to 1975. This was one of the last records that I bought in Chicago before I moved to Japan. And I bought this record sort of at the time when I had just discovered Wax Poetics. I had just finished watching DJ Shadow and Cut Chemist's Brain Freeze DVD or live performance, which if you've never seen that, I highly recommend it because it pretty much was the catalyst for what got me into funk and soul music. And it has basically shaped my music taste to where it is today. Anyways, I really like this compilation, but it's not a real good compilation to get into if you're looking for funk music with a little bit of Latin influence to it. Honestly, it's more the other way around. It's Latin music with more of a funk influence to it. But yeah, this record and this Wax Poetics article right here, and let's see if I can find the page real quick. Yeah, which I had read either shortly or long before, I don't exactly remember the time frame, basically led me to picking up this record. And if you can, I highly recommend to see if you can find this article either online or go ahead and pick up the magazine as well, because it does offer some insight as to how communist Cuba affected the music that was being made over there. But if you can't find a copy of this, I will say that on the inner gatefold of the record, they actually do a really good job of giving you information of what the music scene was like in Cuba at the time, and basically the do's and don'ts of making music in communist Cuba. It's a really interesting story, and it really sort of gives you an idea of what you were allowed to make and what you couldn't make. And essentially, and this was one thing that's really interesting to talk about in one of the paragraphs, that any music that was being made had to go through basically a censorship board. And one of the immediate objectors was any overt reference to music from basically capitalist countries. So covers were completely out of the question. However, that didn't mean that they couldn't make music that sort of took in the influences of Western music. I don't know, can you, if based from Cuba to America, does it technically count as Western music? Let me know in the comments down below. But anyways, I could probably ramble on forever about like the historical context of the music on here. I'd rather just get into the music that's contained in this compilation. So rather than for me to keep blathering on, let's just get into the music. Essentially, every track on here starts with Latin music and then pulls from a multitude of different genres and brings them into the mix. What I mean by that is a lot of Latin music instrumentation shows up on here. So you can expect to hear a lot of singing in Spanish, a lot of Latin percussion, as well as some Latin rhythmic sensibilities and Latin rhythms in general, as well as a lot of horns and a lot of organ. Yet despite the fact that pretty much every single track on here has one, if not all of those elements on here, it's the way that they bring their influences and a multitude of genres into the Latin music sound, incorporating them, and really turning it into something wholly unique and wholly original that really makes this such a wild and interesting musical ride. I said there's a multitude of genres that show up on here, and just listing them off the top of my head, you can expect to hear rock, including some progressive rock and psychedelic rock, funk and soul, some disco, and even a little bit of jazz. So, with all those genres that I just listed, you can expect that every song is going to start off with sort of a Latin music core, although some more than others, and to bring in, if not one, all the genres that I just talked about, and really create something unique and original. And considering every track on here does something a little bit different from the one before it, there really isn't a sound or a vibe on here that feels repeated. Every song on here feels pretty unique, pretty original, and all its own, which I think is another great selling point of this compilation. Interestingly, though, I found that listening to this record again recently, that the general tone and tempo of this record is generally pretty upbeat. In terms of tempo, all the songs on here are either mid or up tempo, and in terms of the general tone and general vibe of all the songs on here, there really isn't a somber or downer of a track anywhere on this record. The majority of the songs are pretty upbeat, pretty celebratory, which I find very interesting considering how repressive the Cuban regime could be, especially during those days. So I'd say another reason to pick this up if you're looking for something that's sort of bright and energetic and full of creativity, that's yet again another great selling point of this compilation. And in all honesty, I really don't have any complaints about this record. The quality of the music on here is good to excellent. It's a nice 180 gram, or if it's not 180 gram, it's something close to that, pressing, so it's got a really good sound quality to it. The packaging's great on it. I love this cover design, even though it completely contradicts what I said about the Rene Costi record. And yeah, I honestly don't really have much else to say other than, like I said earlier on in the video, do not go into this record thinking that you're going to get a funk record with Latin influences. I made the mistake when I picked this record up that it was going to lean heavier on the funk than on the Latin. It's definitely the other way around. But when I came to terms with that and started listening to even more genres since I bought this record, I only find myself enjoying it more and more every time that I listen to it. So that's honestly really my only caveat about this record. So Si Para Usted, Volume 2, the funky beats of revolutionary Cuba. Excellent Latin funk or funky Latin compilation. Definitely worth checking out if you can still find it. And yeah, I gotta say that's gonna be it for me today. I hope you got something out of this record review. I hope you end up checking it out. If you've listened to this compilation before, let me know down in the comments what you thought of it, and let me know what your favorite track from this compilation is. And I'm thinking of sort of turning this into a series. I have a few other world funk compilations like the Panama record that I showed, and I do want to talk about those at some point as well as talking about the straight up deep funk compilations. So that's going to be it for me today. As always, go to my WordPress and Steemit blogs if you want to be able to listen to this record for yourself. The audio links will be down in the description. Definitely hit me up on Twitter. Definitely hit me up on Mixcloud. I'm hoping to get around to the next Raw Select Radio, either, if not this week, next week. So you can expect that one to be out. And hopefully at some point I will get off my lazy ass and upload it to iTunes so you can listen to it as a podcast. And yeah, that's everything that's going on with me. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next week, hopefully.